The 10th Weasley Chapter 30. Harry couldn't shake the conversation with Ron from his mind. The Philosopher's Stone. A legendary artifact capable of granting immortality and turning any metal into pure gold, was potentially hidden somewhere in Hogwarts, guarded by a monstrous three-headed dog. The implications were staggering, and Harry couldn't decide whether to feel awe, fear, or a mix of both. He resolved to stay vigilant, especially since Ron and the junior marauders were still intent on uncovering the stone's secrets. Harry knew their curiosity was bound to get them into trouble. The following day, Harry made his way to the library after potions class. He intended to find more information about Nicholas Flamel and the Philosopher's Stone, hoping to piece together what he could. Hermione Granger was already there, surrounded by stacks of books. Harry hesitated for a moment before approaching her table. "Hey, Hermione," Harry said, sliding into a chair opposite her. Hermione looked up, surprised. "Harry, what are you doing here? Don't you usually study in the Slytherin common room?" Harry shrugged. "Sometimes the library's better. Plus, I'm looking for something specific." Her curiosity piqued. Hermione leaned forward. "What are you looking for?" Harry lowered his voice. "Nicholas Flamel." Hermione's eyes widened. "Nicholas Flamel? The alchemist? Why are you interested in him?" Harry hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "Let's just say I overheard something about him and wanted to learn more." Hermione nodded, pulling a thick book toward her. "He's mentioned in a few of these texts. Let me help you." Together, Harry and Hermione sifted through several books. After nearly an hour, Hermione found a passage in a study of magical innovations. "Here it is," she said, her voice tinged with excitement. "Nicholas Flamel, born in 1326, is the only known maker of the Philosopher's Stone, an alchemical masterpiece that grants immortality and produces the elixir of life." Harry leaned closer, reading the words for himself. "So it's true," he muttered. "The stone exists." Hermione nodded. "It's fascinating, isn't it? But why would you be interested in the Philosopher's Stone?" Harry hesitated again. He didn't want to drag Hermione into the junior marauders' schemes, but he also felt she might be able to help. "Let's just say I think it might be here at Hogwarts." Hermione's jaw dropped. "What? Here? But why?" Harry shook his head. "I don't know. But if it is, it's being guarded by something really dangerous." That evening, Harry caught Ron sneaking out of the Gryffindor common room with Charlie and Neville. He intercepted them near the portrait hole. "Ron, where are you going?" Harry demanded. Ron froze, his expression guilty. Just for a walk?" Charlie rolled his eyes. "Come on, Harry. We're going to check out the dog again." "Are you insane?" Harry hissed. "You promised me you'd be careful." "We are being careful," Ron insisted. "We've got an invisibility cloak." Charlie pulled the shimmering fabric from his bag, grinning. Harry stared at them, exasperated. "Do you have any idea how dangerous this is? If that dog doesn't get you, Filch or Snape will." Charlie smirked. "That's part of the adventure, isn't it?" Harry knew there was no stopping them. If he tried, they'd just find another way to sneak out. Reluctantly, he decided to tag along, reasoning that it was better to keep an eye on them than to let them go alone. "Fine," Harry said, "but if we get caught, I'm blaming you." Ron grinned. "Deal." The group made their way through the darkened corridors, the invisibility cloak barely covering all four of them. When they reached the forbidden corridor, Charlie carefully unlocked the door leading to the three-headed dog. Inside, the creature loomed, its three massive heads swiveling to stare at them. It growled low, the sound vibrating through the floor. Harry's breath caught in his throat. The beast was even more terrifying than Ron had described. "All right, we've seen it," Harry whispered urgently. "Let's get out of here." But Charlie was fixated on the trapdoor beneath the dog. "It's guarding that," he murmured. "Charlie, no," Harry said, pulling at his brother's arm. "We're leaving, now." Reluctantly, Charlie stepped back, and the group slipped out of the room. As they hurried back to their common rooms, Harry's heart pounded in his chest. He couldn't shake the feeling that they had crossed a line, and that their curiosity would lead to even greater danger. "We're not doing this again," Harry said firmly. Ron and Charlie exchanged a look but didn't argue. For now, the mystery of the Philosopher's Stone remained just that, A mystery. But Harry knew it wouldn't stay that way for long. Despite Harry's warning and their narrow escape, the mystery of the Philosopher's Stone weighed heavily on Charlie, Ron, and Neville. Over the next few days, Harry noticed them whispering in corners, scribbling notes in class, and sneaking off whenever they thought no one was looking. Harry tried to focus on his own studies, but his growing concern for his brother and friends made it difficult. He knew they wouldn't give up, and it was only a matter of time before their curiosity led them into even more trouble. One afternoon, Harry was in the library with Hermione Granger, poring over a book on defensive wards, when Charlie burst in, his face alight with excitement. Ron and Neville trailed behind him, looking equally thrilled. "Harry!" Charlie whispered loudly, drawing the attention of Madame Pants, who shot them a stern glare. Lowering his voice, Charlie continued, "We found something big." Hermione frowned. "What are you talking about?" Charlie glanced around before leaning in. "We think Snape's trying to steal the Philosopher's Stone." Harry blinked, taken aback. "What? Snape? How do you know?" Ron pulled a crumpled piece of parchment from his pocket. "We overheard him talking to Filch about the Forbidden Corridor. He said something about the protections and how they won't stop him for long." Hermione's eyes widened. "Are you sure?" Neville nodded. "Positive." He looked really suspicious. Harry sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Even if that's true, what are you planning to do about it?" "We're going to stop him," Charlie said confidently. Hermione gasped. "Stop him? Are you mad? Snape's a professor? And a dangerous one," Harry added. "You're out of your minds if you think you can take him on." The group argued in hushed tones, their voices barely above whispers. "We can't just sit back and let him take the stone," Charlie insisted. "Who knows what he'll do with it?" "Dumbledore must know what's going on," Hermione argued. "If the stone is really in danger, he'll handle it." "Dumbledore's not always around," Ron countered, "and Snape's sneaky. We've got to do something." Harry groaned. "This is insane. If Snape's really after the stone, then going up against him is the worst thing you could do. He's way more experienced than you, and he won't go easy on you just because you're students." Charlie crossed his arms. "So what do you suggest, then? Sit back and hope for the best?" Harry hesitated. He didn't have a better plan, but he couldn't let his brother and his friends rush into danger without thinking it through. Hermione, who had been flipping through one of her books during the argument, suddenly spoke up. "If you're really serious about this, then you need more information. You need to know exactly what protections are in place for the stone." Neville frowned. "How are we supposed to find that out?" Hermione tapped the book in front of her. "The library has sections on advanced magical defenses. And there's also the restricted section." Harry's eyes narrowed. "The restricted section? You're suggesting we break in?" Hermione shrugged. "If you're going to do something reckless, you might as well be prepared." By the time they left the library, a plan was forming. They would sneak into the restricted section that night to find information about the protections surrounding the Philosopher's Stone. Harry, despite his better judgment, found himself roped into the scheme. He didn't like the idea of breaking the rules, but he couldn't let his brother and his friends go alone. As they parted ways, Harry felt a mix of excitement and dread. The stakes were getting higher, and he knew they were venturing into dangerous territory. If Snape really is after the stone, Harry thought, then this is bigger than all of us, and I have a feeling it's only going to get worse. The atmosphere in the Gryffindor common room was electric as midnight approached. Charlie, Ron, Neville, and Hermione gathered near the portrait hole, each looking a mix of nervous and excited. Harry arrived shortly after, his Slytherin robes adding a layer of intrigue to the group's already clandestine mission. "You sure about this, Hermione?" Harry asked, glancing at the young witch. Hermione nodded, clutching a book tightly against her chest. "The restricted section has the information we need. If we're going to figure out what protections are in place for the Philosopher's Stone, this is the best place to start." Ron looked less confident. "I still don't understand why Harry has to come. He's a Slytherin. Isn't this against his nature or something?" Harry smirked. "You'd be lost without me. Someone has to think ahead, and I'm good at covering tracks. Besides, I can talk my way out of trouble better than you can." Neville chuckled nervously. "Let's hope it doesn't come to that." The group huddled together as Charlie pulled out the invisibility cloak. It was a tight fit, but they managed to squeeze under its shimmering fabric. With Harry leading the way, they navigated the dark corridors of the castle, their footsteps muffled by the stone floor. The journey to the library felt like an eternity. Every creak and distant sound made their hearts race, but they pressed on, determined to uncover the truth. When they finally reached the library, Hermione used a quick Alohomora spell to unlock the door. The group slipped inside, the air thick with the scent of old parchment and leather-bound books. "This way," Hermione whispered, leading them to the restricted section. The shelves loomed high above them, filled with ancient tomes that seemed to hum with hidden power. Harry felt a shiver run down his spine as he glanced at the titles. Dark charms and their curses, secrets of the Inferi, magical wards and how to break them. Hermione scanned the spines quickly. "We need something on magical protections." Neville, meanwhile, looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. "Are we sure this is a good idea? What if Filch shows up?" Charlie grinned. "That's what the cloak is for, Neville. Relax." After several tense minutes, Hermione pulled a large, dusty book from the shelf. "Magical guardians and their enchantments," she whispered, her eyes gleaming with excitement. The group gathered around as she flipped through the pages, stopping at a section on three-headed dogs. "Here it is," she said, pointing to an illustration of a massive, snarling beast. Three-headed dogs are often used to guard highly valuable objects. They're almost impossible to bypass unless you know their weakness. "What's the weakness?" Ron asked eagerly. Hermione read on. "It varies." Harry frowned. "That explains why it's guarding the trapdoor, but it doesn't tell us what else is down there." Hermione nodded. "The book mentions that such guardians are usually part of a series of protections. There could be more enchantments or creatures beyond the dog." Before they could delve further, the sound of approaching footsteps froze them in place. "Filch," Neville whispered, his face pale. Charlie quickly stuffed the book into Hermione's bag, and the group scrambled under the invisibility cloak. They held their breath as the caretaker entered the library, his lantern casting eerie shadows across the shelves. "I know someone's in here," Filch muttered, his eyes scanning the room. "Can't hide from me forever." The group remained perfectly still as Filch prowled the aisles. After what felt like an eternity, he finally left, grumbling about misbehaving students. "Let's get out of here," Harry whispered, and they hurried back to their dormitories, their hearts pounding. Back in the Gryffindor common room, the group gathered around the fireplace, reviewing what they had learned. "We need to figure out what else is protecting the stone," Hermione said, her brow furrowed. "If it's that well guarded, there's more to it than just the dog." Charlie nodded. "Agreed. But we also need to find out who might be trying to steal it. Snape's still our main suspect." Harry sighed. "If we're going to do this, we need to be smart. No more reckless sneaking around. We've already pushed our luck tonight." The others nodded, and a sense of determination filled the room. As Harry made his way back to the Slytherin dormitory, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were diving into something far more dangerous than they realized. The Philosopher's Stone wasn't just a mystery. It was a key to unimaginable power. If Snape is after it, Harry thought, then they're in for a fight they might not be ready for.